Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is directly recorded right after the previous video that's on my channel. Something about motivations of fundamental physics and vibration will be the title. But I just wanted to keep going because I was in a little groove there, a little rhythm if you will. But it was just getting too long. Kind of like trying to stuff all fundamental physics into one YouTube video is kind of funny. But that's really what I do every day, just to reduce the logic. Or to generalize the logic, I guess. Well, both. I mean, it's an interplay between the generalizing and specifying, where you again, absolute generality is an extreme, and extreme specificity is an extreme. And you want to find the interplay, the logical theorems, the connections and relationships that are kind of in the gray area, or not like, just in the middle ground. That gives you all of the insight. But continuing on, again, last video we ended up with kind of just, all motion is rotational, everything with the concept of vibration stabilizing into mass, and now that is forming the environment. The mass is the environment. Einstein saying it's the deformation. And, Einstein kind of had an insight to that, but he did not articulate it well, and so I guess we'll just do that. But Einstein would never have had the proofing capacity to salvage general relativity or special relativity. Again, special relativity, for if you're not in research, that's time dilation, and his big thing is really the Einstein field equations, or Einstein equations, and it's not just E equals mc squared, or the one with the Ricci tensor, the Ricci tensor and the Ricci flow. But point being is, again, the what is mass is really the motivation that both, or the fundamental intuition that neither Einstein nor Newton had. But I did want to say again, Einstein was just wrong. But when I say he didn't have the proofing capacity, because like I said, we're all individual people. Like Newton developed all of the mathematics required to do what he did. Einstein used, Ricci and this guy and that guy. So he was like just piecing together things, which isn't wrong, but you're never going to get to that level of generality where you can show that level of specificity by using somebody else's representation of their insight. And so you have to be a self-contained mathematician, and in that sense where you can derive everything, prove everything completely to even begin to process at that level. But Einstein was certainly not there. But, so again, more for kind of the historical things, because Einstein and Newton, in the same way in the 2 episodes ago, we talked about how your environment, like your family, friends, traditions, history, cultures, language, all affects you as a person. Your emotions affect you way more than just logic. A lot more people care about having good relationships with the people around them than if they can calculate the area of a circle to an infinitesimal amount. Like nobody gives a shit. The stuff that the people that play in this game of fundamental research and science are very few and far between, and very few live at the same time. And we're in one of those times, my friends. But again, you're not my friends, fuck all of you. But anyway, point being, the standard model of particle physics can't quantize gravity. But so I wanted to, we ended the last episode with why quantizing meaning the motivation for discreteness, and that is encapsulated by everything is connected but nothing is touching, right? We're all independent systems, that's discrete, but we're all connected in one bigger system. And so then we discussed how mass stabilizes into light, or vibration into light into mass, and then that kind of tying into gravity. Because to me, gravity is, again, it's going to go by the wayside, just like the word quantum. It's just not, it's nothing. Gravitical. It's not, gravity is not a word that has any function in fundamental ontology. But the motivation is wrong. But on top of that, here's another thing. So, right, if you're in a room of people trying to have a discussion, you're not arguing or anything, or even if you are arguing, when you're having a genuine conversation with another human being, you're going to start to use the diction of the person that's the most aware in the room. Someone that can describe something more specifically, you're going to use those words back to them to describe it. And so that happens at the species level as well, like over history and over other people. So when people say, they want to quantize gravity. Gravity is really an intuition that really stemmed from Newton, and then quantize really stemmed from like the dudes in the 1920s. And Einstein, he spurred on the quantum revolution, quote unquote, but it's for discreteness, not for things that are really small. And so when people say stuff like spooky things happen at a distance, or things get spooky at the quantum scale, it's like quantum isn't a scale. Quantum means discrete, a quantity, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so theoretical physics in academia right now is so obfuscated and just flat out wrong that it's not even word salad. It's just criminal. It is so fucking criminal. But so saying that quantum means small is logically wrong, and then fundamentally we showed that there's no uniqueness to scale, and then we're going to show that the wave function is entangled. Everything is entangled. Nope, everything is connected, kind of close, but you can't be in two physical locations at one time. You can't bilocate. Your electrons aren't bilocating. You can't be in two positions at the same time in the same, which is the reciprocity, the reciprocal logical statement to say that an electron can't, no fermion or no mass carrying particle or no mass occupies space. Is fundamentally what you need to understand. And we can get more specific, but the general level of that pyramid you need to understand is mass occupies space. And so two pieces of mass can't occupy the same space. And so when they say it's in the same space, or it's in two places at one time, completely wrong, and direct logically the reciprocal of saying no two electrons can occupy the same coordinates. But again, force-carrying particles, again, the particle physics breaks down into fermions and bosons. Bosons being they don't contain mass. Fermions, so they do contain mass. Mathematically, they have a spin a half in their little Brockett notation. Again, just if you're exposed to theoretical physics as it is. But again, you can't model gravity as a particle. You can't. Again, gravity, but so when they say they want to find the graviton, or they want to again quantize gravity to find the particle. Again, that's the big verbiage that we'll use. Find the graviton. Yeah, but this is post Newton, and so Newton, who again personally definitely had more intuition than Einstein in terms of fundamental physics, because quantum to mechanics, right? Newton did mechanics. Quantum is an additive to quantum mechanics. but the graviton can't be theorized, let alone detected. And it's because Einstein, right? Einstein was the one that came out and said gravity is space-time. You take any typical space-time book and it'll have like, the Earth on like a net, just like a grid, and it's like this deformation down here. And then they'll say, the big insight that Einstein had was it's not that the Earth is causing that deformation in that net. It's that the deformation in the net is the gravity, right? Hence geodesics. The straightest line, or the shortest distance between 2 points isn't always necessarily a straight line. It can be a curved line, And then we can go into the mathematics and physics. What is a line? A connection of 2 points, right? A connection of those two nodes on our logic pyramid. Well, you can apply that to any physical context, not just logic. But having a motivation, saying we want to quantize gravity after, again, it's just there's just so much words out there. Just nothing makes any sense of this. But what is fundamentally wrong with quantum mechanics? You can't model force. And again, this is, right, they'll say it's a force-carrying particle. And then they'll differentiate into the strong force, the weak force, the electromagnetic force, and then again the motivation, because the big differentiator is that they're so much stronger comparatively to what quote-unquote gravity is. And so why is that? Why would vibration? Because it's not, again, vibration is a weaker, an unstable atom, right? When you have electricity, you have flowing electrons. So those atoms aren't considered literally at that time not in a stable state. It's moving. And so So vibration doesn't move, it vibrates. Like literally, this buzz, anything that moves has momentum, right? You need to move to do work. You need to have momentum to move. But the entire motivation is to say, gravity is a force, which it isn't. Einstein modeled it as a shape of space-time, which time in there is just, I don't even know why people think that's related to dimension. It's not. And the logical inconsistency comes from the word dimension, right? You can't really, again, deduce from that. It's very clear, everyone says dimension or dimension, but like the prefix di is clearly two in a lot of cases. But you can't break that down anymore. Literally that word, dimension. Mention, if I reference you in a book, it's a mention, but mention, not mension. And so you can't break down that word anymore. And then so space-time as a dimension, that is just Santa Claus is friends with the Easter Bunny only on Friday the 13th when Medusa says hi to Zeus. It's just like, oh, what do I do with that? And so, but you can't model force the potential for momentum as a particle. Momentum being mass times velocity. Then you just have mass equals momentum divided by velocity. Again, this is some derivation for me. But I just have gravity as a force is Newtonian, quote unquote. Anyway, disregarding Einstein's intuition, mass creates boundaries. And so when that vibration stabilizes into light, when that light in the universe cools down enough to stabilize into particles, and it forms shape, well, now you have the concept of a boundary, of a container. And so that's just kind of building some logic there. No two fermions can have the same coordinates at the same time. We just covered that. The evidence of mass is the absence of flatness, right? Nothing can be flat that has some mass because mass is the environment, is the structure of what we are. Is buzz, 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 is. See how the buzzing, because ising is. See how we stabilize vibration into words? You're going to tell me no to that? Okay, Johnny Harvard. Johnny and Harvard are going to solve it with the super selectrons. What the fuck am I at? Oh, okay. Yeah, but the evidence of mass is the absence of flatness. What is the relationship of momentum and inertia? Inertia is a property of matter. Matter is mass. Shout out Bill Nye the Science Guy. that dude's funny. I don't know. I like Bill Nye. Probably my favorite scientist. But again, those two words logically just as is. What is momentum? What is inertia? You tell me. Your words will be good enough. I'll be able to derive the logic from it. Seriously. It's not like me trying to flex. It's literally what I do. It's what I do. But velocity, no system is at a velocity of 0. A system with a velocity of 0 does not exist. Kind of covered that because again you would have to measure it, or any measurable system, but you can say any system because you would have to interact with it, and if you interact with it, it would move a little bit. So once you have movement, that is it will have a velocity. A dimension is a descriptor of a shape. We're in 3R3, so we would need three pairs of two things to completely describe the space: up, down, left, right, forward, backward. Yeah, those are 3. so there it is. There's evidently true again, right? And again, physically, the empirical evidence of that, as again of stable different layers, you can literally see. Take it yourself. Find a blank wall. Some colors are better than others, but take any object, again indiscriminate of form, put it up there, and you will see 3 distinct shadows of any object. And so that empirically validates that again that there's only 3 dimensions. And now we'll get a little farther. But so we covered that in the last one. But electron is a point part, or cannot be in a point particle. We covered that. But what more generally, again, like point, radiation, inertia. What is a point? Right? Numbers don't exist. Numbers represent points. Sometimes numbers aren't a lot of things. But a point, what is it? It's a point in space. It's a place. It's a location. It's like, how do you define a location? an object, a system, a thing is relation to other things, and the environment being this vibration pyramid structure, and form and shape being the absence of that vibration that's stable into light that is now the empty space that I'm moving my hands right now. What do I do with my hands? And so that is kind of what we have there. But now the real motivation and continuing on is we have to define a tension path. I mean, this is stuff, we're reiterating all of the stuff from my beginning lectures that I had already done one time completely and then unified it all, or again, solidified it all. Again, showing a more generality. Speciality, the natural tendency to differentiate, specifically for sexual antagonism. That generality shows so much specificity that this is the second time I'm doing this through what's called sensorality, which again, right? If I say, do you have senses? How do you spell that word? You would spell it S-E-N-S-E-S, senses, with an S. And then so when people spell censorship with a C, right? If you blur something out on YouTube, or cover up the boobies on a TV show or a movie or whatever, you're censoring something. So you made a conscious choice. So this model can integrate choice, which I don't know how we get choice from anybody else trying to do this thing called physics. but censorship with a C, you have senses with an S. So I'm showing that sensorality with an S is different than sensorality with a C. And so any non-inanimate object, right? A computer is a sensor with a C. Me, a human being, is a sensor with an S. A mechanical, right, like the mechanical coin divider, old school people with you put a quarter in or a dime in or a nickel in, it separates them based on their shape mechanically. Like there's no digital anything, it's just mechanical. And so that's a sensor with a C. Any machine would be a sensor with a C. Any system that has sentience would be censorship with an S. So when a human being choose to filter what a kid can watch or what an adult can watch or what behaviors you can do, that is censorship with an S. And then I can show how that generality has specificity to physics and to math and to history and to every other of these different subjects, all using words and logic to explain phenomenon. And so we're going to develop a tension path. Again, tension kind of replacing this concept of potential energy, but again, continuing on with that everything is touching, or everything is connected, but nothing is touching, and then we can address the many body problem, right? Any natural counting system is one too many. We should be base 2, not base 10 for natural evidence. Again, the fundamental constant that was represented by the dynamic limit. Again, this is from the proofing I've done way back. But is pi, the relationship of the radius and the circumference of the circle, and then the golden ratio is the 2.4 something. Now I've already covered that. There's no point to go over it. It's trivial anyway. But the big motivation is to use a tension path. Independent systems in a continuous system in one system show the overall universal development of the shape of the universe. Local systems show them how they interact with one another. Again, the mass and velocity. The 3-body problem, where we can go one too many problems. We can do any amount of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 70, 80, 1,000, 10,000, a million, a billion, a trillion, whatever. But that's how you do it. Again, you use it as kind of, we'll use some concepts from fluid dynamics. Again, I will do it all, literally redo it all. If you wanted to do it right, do it yourself. Well, I kind of did. But basically, if you take just different densities, if you take like oil, different density of oil and put it in water, or just take liquids, again, that don't dissolve into one another, that aren't solvent with one another, make them vibrate at a given frequency. And just like the Plata plates, when you take a metal plate and you vibrate it in grains of sand, will go into different resonance patterns. You just do that. You can even do that, or you can do things with liquid. And whatever those shapes are, because we've completely proven the scalability of the universe is indiscriminate. The shape of things that are really small and really big is the same. It's a fractal universe. And then you just, again, see how model the densities, how big is the Earth relation to the Sun and to Jupiter and to Venus and Mercury. And you just do that, scale that proportional to the things that you put in your models. Make it vibrate at different frequencies, and the time evolution will be the evolution of the shape of the universe once R3 or once R2 is stabilized. And so that is it for today, I believe. And I was going to show you. This was again got longer than I thought. This is going to take about 10 years to upload, but a lot of derivation after. But like I said, the videos and all of the stuff that I explain on the videos really is redundant to me. Like I've already instilled the intuition into myself, but I'm a YouTuber and I'm trying to make money. And so one day when they say Brad is a smart mathematician, this is going to be worth a lot of money. Again, I'm so done with money because I should be paid. And again, not that anybody's watching to this point in the video that knows what I'm doing. Anybody that could help me already knows all of these things. So if you're watching this again, like, who the fuck is this guy? Just a person that did science like the world asked of me, and then they kicked me out and destroyed my life because everyone's a bunch of competitive fucks that compete over nothing. And then you take the most pathetic people the world has ever seen, aka the dweebs, the dorks. I'm not talking if you play Dungeons and Dragons or you're into nerdy hobbies. I'm talking about people that are so insecure they think being nerdy is some side of excuse for a personality. And then they go and behave like a human, like anybody else, like an arrogant jock that gets all the girls. Well, now they're the smart tech guy, or they're the big mathematician, and they're the head of the department. And then they demonstrate the same exact shit behavior that everybody else they've ever bitched about does anyway. So this has been fun, and I will be back with more derivation or content of some sort soon. I'm just gonna took again about a year break. I don't want to say I took a break. I just stopped doing shit and just sat on my couch for a fucking year. Because again, I'm still a human being. I still pay bills and try to figure things out, all of which that are fraudulently withheld from me, in extreme violation of international law, but actually. And that's about it. So, working on tension path physics, which again I've already done. I just have to literally prove all of the individual words to describe that system. It's not like the intuition's not hard to figure out. It's the words in relation. Again, there's so many words and letters and sounds, and you just pile them all together, and then the answers pop out in my brain. So that is it for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.